Well, ladies and gentlemen, today I'm going to be ranking all of the major Republican primary candidates from 2016 to 2024. Somebody requested I do this, so I made my own tier list, as you can see, with full categories and most of the candidates, most of the meaningful ones. I think there's 18 total, many of them going all the way back to 2016. There's some from 2024 and also one from 2020. Obviously, in 2020, Trump was running as an incumbent, so it was a lot easier for him to win the primary process. It's basically a given. But so you can see this is the GOAT category. I mean, we can just do this right now. Donald Trump has won the last three Republican primaries. He's been the Republican nominee 3 straight times. So when it comes to the GOAT, within the last 3 Republican primaries, 2016 to 2024, it has to be Trump. And by the way, the criteria on how I'm doing this, it's going to be some of my own opinion. It's going to be, did they overperform relative to their funding? It's going to be, maybe what I think of them in terms of how they debated. It's all of that's going to be at play here. Then you've got the solid candidate, maybe somebody that was decent. They were never going to win, or maybe they had a chance to win, but just didn't for whatever reason. Much of it is because of the MAGA base. It's just so much of the Republican Party right now. Average, pretty self-explanatory. You do have bad, just a purely bad candidate, and then burning money, of course. There's going to be a few of those people that got funded and just were horrible, horrible candidates and could not lead a country, and it became pretty obvious early on. So Trump is going to be the only person here. I mean, this is from 2016 to 2024, and he won all 3 times. So obviously he's going to be the only GOAT in terms of this list. Next, we have DeSantis. So DeSantis, I would say it was a letdown for DeSantis. From the start, the Elon Musk launch, if you guys remember on X, people kept wondering, when is he going to announce? When is he going to announce? He finally does. I think in like March, I want to say, of last year. It was kind of late. And then obviously the primaries, he did not do well at all. I have to put DeSantis in bad. You could even almost argue burning money, just because there was so much hype with DeSantis, and you guys probably don't remember this. In terms of the betting odds, when Biden was in office, like in 2022, the betting odds for who was going to win the 2024 election, Trump was not leading, Biden was not leading, DeSantis was actually leading. And DeSantis, as a politician, obviously did great things for Republicans in Florida, making that state a non-toss-up, making it pure Republican during the pandemic, all the people moving there, getting more electoral votes, huge stuff. But in terms of just, me judging him during the primary, it was not good. I will say it was basically an impossible position for DeSantis to be in, going up against MAGA. How do you do that? How do you traverse it? Obviously, Nikki Haley is like the token establishment candidate. DeSantis, because he had the culture war stuff, he really didn't fit in with that. But he also had to go against Trump, who, was MAGA, so you got to go against that. And then Trump attacks him. He attacks Trump. Trump's got such a bigger base, it's going to look really bad for DeSantis. So he was kind of in an, impossible to win situation. Although I will say, like in late 2022, early 2023, it was looking like DeSantis was actually going to be the nominee. Now that was very early, but if you guys remember, Trump announced that he was running like right after the midterms, I think in 2022, and a lot of people were down on Trump within the Republican Party, and it seemed like DeSantis had like the lead in all the betting markets. But DeSantis certainly did really good things, and I'm sure he's going to try and come back in 2028. Basically, ensuring that Republicans are going to win Florida, making that a non-toss-up state. But in terms of this, you could even argue burning money, just because it was such a letdown. Now, again, it was a tough spot to be in. He's really not the establishment prototypical candidate, although he kind of was thrust into that role. And he's also then going against MAGA, so it's like, what do you really do? He's trying to lean into the culture war stuff, and it just didn't work out for him, so I have to put him in bad. But as a politician, I mean, this is not me ranking him as a politician, it's just how good or bad was his campaign. Next, you have Nikki Haley. You could say, because she finished second in terms of delegates in 2024, maybe as average. I mean, obviously I like DeSantis more than Haley, but this is just me ranking how they did. She ended up getting all of the establishment money after DeSantis dropped out basically after Iowa. She stayed in for a little. I mean, she just had no chance of winning. I'm going to put her in bad. I mean, it's basically burning money. You're just not going to beat Trump. And the only thing you could say is, well, she finished above DeSantis. Nobody thought that was going to happen going into the primaries, or at least going into like 2023. Nobody thought that would ever happen. But the only reason she did finish in front of DeSantis in terms of delegates, I would think, is because she became the prototypical establishment anti-Trump candidate, which had zero chance of winning. And it turned into this thing where it was like, well, is she going to, try and stay in to get the delegates to where if Trump goes to jail, she'll be next in line? And remember, imagine if Trump died, right before the convention, Crooks does the shooting, Trump almost dies. Imagine if he died, she going into the convention would have had the most delegates. What a disturbing thought. Most people think Vivek or someone else would step up and it would be an open convention and he would win, but it is an interesting thing to take into account. So Nikki Haley, she had no chance. I have to say bad. Doug Burgum, I mean, I don't think he invested a ton. I know he's got a lot of money, so maybe he invested money. Doug Burgum was not good. The MAGA base tried to push Burgum, and they were like, because it looked like Trump was going to choose him as the VP, and I said, no, he's a dud, don't do that. But Burgum, during the debates, it seemed like he was like a third grader during a presentation. He was just spewing, just rhetoric that he had practiced before, like a robot. And I'm not trying to be mean to Burgum. I mean, stuff's come out about him in China now that's not good. But, Burgum, it is what it is. He'll probably have a position in Trump's administration. Trump said that. He was one of the 3 finalists. But in terms of potentially winning, there was no chance for him. Asa Hutchinson, that's another burning money. He was an anti-Trump guy, I think, from Arkansas. Horrible, horrible candidate. Maybe 0.5% anti-Trump. It didn't work out for him. Mike Pence is another one, I would say, burning money. The reason a lot of these guys are going and burning money is just because the MAGA base is so strong. And right now, these are a lot of 2024 candidates. And so in 2024, after a certain point, really even before Iowa, you could say that they just wasted money. Now, a lot of that was probably they thought Trump could go to jail, stuff could happen to him. And that's why Nikki Haley stayed in to try and get as much delegates as possible. Like Hutchinson, there's no real. Pence, it's crazy. People thought Pence was going to be the nominee in 2024. Somebody actually said in my chat that they were like, well, if Trump had won in 2020, Pence would be the nominee. I really don't think so. I think it would be DeSantis. I think DeSantis would be over Pence. They would pass up Pence. Remember back in 2015, when the Democrats were coming together, Biden was the VP to Obama, who just won his second term in 2012, and they passed over Biden. They told him not to run, and they gave it to Hillary. So I think the Republican Party would probably give it to DeSantis, because in an alternate timeline, DeSantis would not be anti-MAGA like he had to do where he went against Trump, which really alienated a lot of Republicans against him. When DeSantis, going into the primary season before all of the attacks, had a 62% approval rating. So I think it would be DeSantis in 2028, and then probably Tulsi Gabbard as the VP or something like that. But with Pence, there was just never a chance ever. Obviously, his relationship with Trump, I think I'll put him in front of I'll put him right here just because he was at least the VP for someone. So you could say, well, you can kind of understand him running, but there was never any chance there. Tim Scott will be the first one I might decide to put in average, just because relative to, how much money it felt like he spent, not too much. He was kind of in it. It never, I mean, you could argue he's also in terms of bad, just because he never had a chance to win. And I know, Trump was thinking about choosing him for VP. A lot of people wanted Trump to pick Tim Scott. It didn't happen. But Tim Scott, it was just kind of a meh campaign. He was kind of forgettable. I mean, these 3 are all the same. They just really had no chance against Trump. Ben Carson, I think Ben Carson, you could actually argue for solid or average. I'll say average right now because Carson really tailed off. But if you guys remember the 2016 primary cycle, and trust me, the 2016 Republican primary was the best primary we've had. When you look at 2020, 2024, 2016 Republican primary was better than anything the Democrats had in 2020 when they had their competitive primary. But Ben Carson, in terms of overall net just voting aggregate numbers, he went ahead of Trump at a certain point. When Trump was leading by 15, Carson shot ahead for a day and then went back down. If you go back and look at the numbers, I still remember that. So Ben Carson obviously has a really good relationship with Trump. I'll say it was average. He really obviously did not finish well. backing out and Trump getting the nomination. Chris Christie, I would just say burning money, although he probably got money from Democrats. If you guys remember Christie, back in 2016 and more recently in 2024, he's doing all these hits on CNN, anti-Trump hits. It was just a charade. I mean, he was never serious about trying to win. He was up there on the debate stage to try and call out Trump every chance he got because Trump did not debate in 2024 because he had such a big lead. Bill Weld, this is the one candidate from 2020. So this is when Trump was the incumbent. Yeah, you're just burning money if you're running against an incumbent like that. Trump has just a death grip on the party, and he was running as an incumbent. Technically, there still is a primary process. It's kind of like Biden running in the primaries in 2024. They just gave it to him, and so this was the one main guy. He won one delegate, and I think it was probably DC if I had to guess. And then Trump won every other delegate in 2020. Ted Cruz, I would say Ted Cruz is probably in the solid tier. Ted Cruz was within striking distance of Trump. The problem for the Republicans, if they wanted to try and take down Trump, they needed to do what the Democrats did in 2020, where they all come together, most of them drop out so they can seal the vote with one person. And if they had all dropped out and rallied around Ted Cruz, it would be interesting against Trump, but they didn't do that. Cruz, however, he was within shouting distance. He won a decent amount of delegates, and he was the closest one to Trump in terms of actually trying to threaten him. Although you could argue Carson might have been, but this is just me grading them, not really them as a politician, just based off of their primary runs. Although Ted Cruz has had some pretty sweet moments on the floor there. Next, you do have Marco Rubio. So Rubio is another one I would say either average or solid. It never really seemed like Rubio was challenging Trump in 2016. But, you had the tiny hands thing. You had the back and forth. I mean, he was in it, the debates. It was a fun little, theater to watch. I'll say average, kind of similar to Ben Carson. John Kasich, just terrible. I don't know why he stayed in as long as he did in 2020 or 2016 from Ohio. So he's from my state. Just really weird. He stayed in till the end. He was the last one to drop out. Maybe even he might have even dropped out after Ted Cruz. I don't know. Jeb Bush, Jeb. Oh man, it's unfortunate, but the amount of money that he got being a Bush, he was the favorite, and Trump just absolutely destroyed him. Please clap. Yes, it's unfortunate. It was a great moment, but I mean, Jeb Bush is just, he was just not cut out for that. I mean, it's obvious. It is what it is, but he's got to be the poster boy. He probably burnt the most money out of anyone here. Rand Paul. Remember when Republicans had that debate at the hangar with the airplane in the background, and Trump was in the middle and Rand Paul there was 11 of them. They had 11 of them. What's even the point of that? But Rand Paul was at the way end, and then Trump's like, well, first of all, I don't even know why Rand Paul is here. He's got less than 1%. And then Rand Paul is just like, bro, what are you, come on. You gotta go back and watch that clip. He's like, I don't even know why he's here. And then he's like, there's far too many people. Remember when Trump to Jeb Bush was like, Jeb, you're going further away from me because of how they set up the debates. The person that's first in the polls is in the middle, and then you get further away. And Trump's like, Jeb, you're going the opposite way. That was another good moment. But Lindsey Graham, he didn't even make this. He ran in 2016. He didn't even make Iowa. So similar to Kamala Harris in 2020. That's a good comparison. Just like Kamala Harris, who didn't make Iowa because they were so bad, Lindsey Graham didn't even make Iowa. Neither did Scott Walker. Scott Walker, man. I mean, Scott Walker, the way he ran his campaign, there were actually people saying in 2015 that he was going to be the nominee, and he also didn't make Iowa, if I remember correctly. And then you do have Vivek, so you could say Vivek is solid, but I mean, he got crushed, let's be honest. He dropped out after Iowa. I'll say Vivek is average, but it's basically a lose-lose. When you're the mini version of Trump, why would they vote for you? I mean, it's a tough spot, but there's just no way in terms of his primary process, Trump really ever felt threatened. So, I mean, in terms of, the recent candidates, based on how much Trump has really had a stranglehold over this, I mean, I don't really think anyone outside of maybe Ted Cruz threatened him, maybe Ben Carson for that few weeks when he was leading or whatever. But even that, it was just, none of these candidates really did anything against Trump and MAGA. Really, and that was with Trump opening when he announced he was running at like 3 or 4%. I mean, he was really low in terms of polling average, and then he just built it up before Iowa. I think he ended up losing Iowa to Ted Cruz, and then Trump said that he cheated Ben Carson out of winning Iowa because he made phone calls or something. I remember that as well. But either way, this is just kind of my ranking. This is just in terms of how good they ran their primaries, how much of a chance they had. I would rank it like this. In terms of actual candidates, I would say Vivek is solid. I would say probably Cruz is still solid. You could argue Rubio is solid, but I like DeSantis. Like these people as candidates mainly. Move Tim Scott up there, something like that probably. But either way, guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.